I can't believe it, but it's been 3 years since I've owned this Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus. So I want to give you a 3-year review. And here's how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to talk about 5 distinct things. And those will be charging, range, the condition of the car, the software experience, and then what have my experiences have been driving the car versus my expectations when I first bought it. So those are the 5 things I'm going to go into as they break down my ownership of this Tesla for the past 3 years. First thing I want to discuss is how was the condition of this Tesla after 3 years. When I was first driving this car back in 2019, there weren't a lot of white interior Teslas on the road here in Utah where I live. There's a lot more now, but I think the big question back then was, yeah, they look great, but how are they going to hold up over time? Well, I'm happy to report they're holding up great. If I had to give them a grade, probably about an A-. There is a little bit of wear on the driver's seat. I mean, we use it every single day, so I think there would be a little bit of wear, but there's no staining. And I've spilled condiments in here, I've spilled drinks in here. They've always wiped right up, so I think the white seats have held up great for 3 years. I don't anticipate it'll be a problem for the duration of this car. I've been very happy with the look and even happier with how they've held up. The exterior of the car is doing great as well. There are a few micro scratches from the car wash, but nothing that you would be able to see from a distance. Only when you're really up close can you see that. The windshield actually has been surprisingly good. I've had several rocks come flying at the windshield. They always deflect off. I have no rock chips, no rock cracks. There's no damages on the interior. Everything is held up great. So the stitching is still in place. The interior has surpassed my expectations after 3 years. And for a mid-tier vehicle, I think the interior is doing an excellent job standing all the things we throw at it. Because I have a kid now. All the stuff that my 2-year-old is throwing at this thing, it's doing a really good job holding up. I'm really happy with it. The second thing I want to discuss is software. That was one of the biggest reasons I got this car 3 years ago, is I loved the idea that software was going to be at the core of this car, and that for the duration of this car, I would be able to get software updates and new features would come to my car. And I would say my expectations have been far exceeded in this regard. I have loved the ability to get software pushes. There have been so many things that have changed since I first bought this car. And I've discussed this in previous reviews, but recently I now have blind spot cameras. When you put on your blinker, a little camera comes up to show you your blind spot. That's been really nice. And things in the past too. Sentry mode was another big one. There's been a lot of nice updates over software, and I was hoping that would be my experience with the car, and through 3 years, it's definitely been my experience. With that being said, the pros to software are not always pros. There are some cons as well. I thought version 11 Tesla software was a step backwards. They took away all the controls on the bottom dash, and some of them you've been able to add back in over time, but I just didn't like all the customization. I didn't think it was as useful. I don't like how much real estate on the screen the left side of the car takes when driving. I think that it could be shrunk down a little bit. So it hasn't all been great, but by and large, my car has greatly improved over these 3 years, and I was hoping for that. One of the biggest reasons I bought this car was I wanted to feel like this car would still feel new. And through software, I definitely feel that way, and it's been great. So it's definitely exceeded my expectations. The next thing I want to discuss is charging. What has charging been like? One of my first videos I ever did was how I charged, because the first year of owning the car, I didn't have a high-speed charger at my home. The last 2 years I have, and it's changed the way I've charged. And I would definitely say these cars are designed to be charged at home. If that's not something you can do, then you need to really evaluate what my charging options are around me. My first year of owning the car, I charge at work. Where I work, there's high-speed chargers. I get 25 miles of range per hour. And this was before the pandemic began, so I was going in every day. And there weren't that many electric cars at the time back in 2019. So I charged almost exclusively at work. No Tesla superchargers in my general area in Utah County here in Utah. And that's what I relied on. And then in 2020, I moved, we got a high-speed charger, and now 70% of the time I charge at home. And the other 30% of the time I'm charging at work when I go in. And that works for me. But now with so many electric cars on the road, it would be hard to solely rely on charging away from my home. I don't know if it would be possible. And the supercharger network here in Utah, and especially in California, it is constrained, to say the least. If you are relying on that, I don't know how it's feasible. So for me, if you have an at-home charger, it's outstanding, it's excellent. And I'm in a Standard Range Plus. I only charge to 60% every day, and that's more than enough range. I'm talking 140-ish miles when I leave the house in the morning. That is totally enough range. Like, if you're someone who you're not going on long road trips all the time, if you're not commuting a long way to work, then an electric car is great for that. If you're going on road trips, and I've gone on a couple multi-state road trips, it's more difficult because, especially in Standard Range Plus, you have to charge more, and then the charging stations are getting full, at least when I travel to the West Coast. So that is something to consider when buying an electric car. But for my use case, which is charge at home, occasionally charge in other places, it works great. I touched on this a moment ago, but range. What has range been like for me? Real world range. When I bought my Standard Range Plus, my range at 100% was 220 something. Shortly after, I got a software bump that extended my range to 240. Right now, if I were to charge to 100%, it would get me about 217 miles. So that puts me at about a 17% battery loss over 3 years, which that's a little higher than I would like it to be. But with that being said, after driving 40,000 miles in 3 years, I noticed no difference in my day-to-day driving. None whatsoever. I haven't been on a road trip in about a year, so I'm not sure how that would feel with 17% battery loss after 3 years, but day-to-day driving, not a problem whatsoever, I think. And now a Standard Range Plus, it's not even called Standard Range Plus anymore. My car name doesn't even exist. The lowest level of the Model 3, the entry-level price, has 267 miles at 100%. You don't want to charge to 100% unless you're going on a road trip, so you're probably at 80, 90. You're still over 200 miles. So I think the range has been no concern. And that was a real thing back in 2019. Oh, 200 miles, like, what's the range going to be like? What's the issue? On road trips, it was fine. Around town, it's great. So if you're looking at buying a Tesla, the more range, the better. If you can afford the longer range, go for it. You'll never complain having more range. But if you want to get an electric car and you're saying, I can only afford to get into the lowest level, I can assure you, for day-to-day driving, it is more than enough. It will never be an issue. And as the charging network continues to grow, there'll be even more places to charge when you're going out and about. So range, no concerns whatsoever, far exceeded my expectations. And I don't, even with, because as I look into the next 2 to 3 years, I'll be over 20% battery loss since I bought it new. Still no concern whatsoever with range. The last thing I want to discuss is, what were my expectations 3 years ago, and has this car met those expectations? Well, 3 years ago, and you can go back and watch my first review, my expectations were I'd have good software updates, that it would be a fun car to drive, that I would have good service, and on all these fronts, I think I've been very happy. Like 3 years in, I don't feel need to upgrade this car. because there have been a few changes to the Model 3 in 3 years. The biggest one, the one that I would be most interested in, is having an electric trunk, an automatic trunk. I don't have that on the front or the trunk, and now all Model 3s, they come with that automatic trunk. And I've even read that they may even retrofit and upgrade older Model 3s to have that, which would be very tempting, because that's the biggest thing. It's not that I need it, because I definitely don't. Like, you can function without an automatic trunk just fine. My biggest problem has been, it's a $40,000 car. Like, should have an automatic trunk, for heaven's sake. So that's been something that I didn't think it would bother me as much as it has over the 3 years. But software, things have been great other than version 11. That's been a step back. I don't love the bottom bar, as I mentioned earlier, and I don't like that I can't choose how things look in terms of where my vehicle is currently, and the speedometer and the autopilot. And the autopilot change was really disappointing. I think it's much harder to just quickly see at a glance, am I in autopilot or not? But by and large, I mean, when I look at all the changes in 3 years, significant, great changes, far exceed these few nitpicks that I have. The car is still a blast to drive. It's smooth. My wheel alignment is in good condition. I don't notice a drift one way or the other, and it's just, the acceleration is still so much fun. I don't think it'll ever get old. Just that instant torque, that instant pop that you get in an electric vehicle, I love that. So that's been excellent. And my experience with Tesla service has been outstanding. I've had a few little things that I've documented here on my YouTube channel. I'll link those videos below. But it's been great. And having them come to my garage, it's just, until you experience it, it is incredible. Hey, come to the garage, check it out. It's all good. I work from home a lot of the time. It's not an inconvenience to get that service. So that has been great. And then they're even building a Tesla service center near me here in Utah County. So that's going to make things even better in case I did have to go in. In conclusion, you know, in 2019, I was really excited about it. I was a little worried about the cost, and I was a little bit worried, is this car going to reach these high expectations that I have? And 3 years later, I can definitively answer that question with a yes. I have loved every second of owning this car. Being a Tesla car owner has been outstanding. The service has been great. So, you know, if you're in the market for one, because there's a lot more electric vehicles on the road now than there were in 2019, I still think Tesla is the way to go. They have a great charging network. I think that their cars are well built. I haven't noticed any crappy, I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but there have been complaints of coming out of the factory that things aren't built great, paint's not great. Not my experience at all. It's been excellent. So, you know, it's up to you whether or not this makes sense. But after 3 years, I love my car just as much as I did the first day I drove it away from my Tesla pickup. So it's been great. I guess the only other nitpick would be, I wish the referral program was a little better. It'd be nice to have some free supercharger miles still for you guys and for me. But hey, that's neither here nor there. So there you go. There's my 3 year, I should say, review on the Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus, which no longer exists. But I hope you've enjoyed the videos throughout the years, and I'll continue to make ones as there are things to report on. So thanks for watching. Have a great day wherever you are, and we'll see you next time.